Bartlett and Hazar. And maybe you could take a moment and tell us about yourselves. Hazar, would you mind going first?
Yeah, no problem. My name is Hazar Jaber, and I'm a mother of 3 children. Ferris is 18, and he has part cerebral palsy, speech delay, cognitive delay, and he's 18 years old. Will graduate high school next year. And my other 2 sons are 15 and 9. And then I'm a dentist by training, but I work as a CEO for several dental offices. It's called Happy Kids Dentistry, so I do that. And I'm originally from Syria, and I moved to the United States 22 years ago. And what else I could say about myself? That's it.
Annie doesn't get any time.
Huh?
Annie doesn't get any time. He didn't show up.
And I'm married to a wonderful man that Sally and Mike know about. We always say he gets out of these things because he says, Hazar knows it all. Just send Hazar. No, he doesn't. So we live in Richfield, Washington. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm happy you're here. Side note, I enjoyed watching Hazar's son and my son played unified basketball just 1 year together and then COVID, but that was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
I'm hoping maybe next year, try it again.
For sure.
You want me to go?
Sure.
Do you want us to go?
Yes, thank you, Sally.
So I'm Sally Bartlett and my husband, Mike. And we have 2 kids. We have a 21-year-old son, Rob, who is at Gonzaga, finishing up there. And then we have our daughter, Katie, who's 19 and was born with Down syndrome. And we've learned a lot along the way, I think. And we've, what was I going to say? Oh, we had a prenatal diagnosis. I don't know if that matters to anyone, but that's its own thing. So Hazar didn't find out until later. And we found out before she was even born. So I'm trying to think of what else. I'm a teacher by training, but I'm not in the classroom now. And Mike is a family medicine doctor, and we live in Longview, so a little north. Mm-hmm. And this is Merwin.
Merwin, that's adorable.
Merwin.
He wanted to join, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Merwin the cat.
Yes, a very fuzzy one.
Fuzzy ones.
Very fuzzy. Look how fuzzy.
Oh,
I know.
he's so fuzzy.
Cute.
Thank you. He's a good cat.
Mike, what can you tell us about yourself?
Well, Sally covered pretty much everything. I don't know, what else do you need to know about me other than I do family medicine and
For like 22 years.
well, yeah.
Time.
And I've worked for Peace Health Medical Group here in town. I also deliver babies, so that's
Oh, by the way.
Yes.
it's part of family medicine, but a lot of people in family medicine don't practice that portion of it. It's just more work and less sleep.
I bet.
Oh, and he volunteers for Special Olympics swimming.
That's true.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Oh.
I did grow up swimming in California, so.
Oh. So is Katie a swimmer?
She is. She's been swimming in Special Olympics since she was 8.
Oh, see, that's good for me to know because it's all about me. And my son is afraid of the water too. So maybe it's nice to get some good connections. Oh.
Yeah, her first year, we thought she was going to be sinking.
Mm-hmm.
She was put into the 25-yard, which is one length of the pool, and we didn't know that she'd make it to the other end. She almost.
But she did.
She made it.
And then she was on the high school swim team too for the 4 years.
Yeah. It was, by the time she got to high school, she swam on the team there.
That's wonderful.
Great exercise.
Yeah. And it's easier on the joints.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And it makes baths and showers a little easier.
That's true. They do get sick more often.
So prior to this recording, I sent our guests a list of some questions so they could hopefully maybe have given it a tiny bit of thought to answer, just to kind of get the discussion going about what it's like to raise a child with a developmental disability, and maybe what some of the differences are or what some things are alike. So I will start with the questions, and then it looks like we'll have time following that for other people to ask their own questions, and certainly time for you all to share or improv whatever it is that you think it would be helpful for. There was one mom I knew of for sure that had signed up. The idea was that maybe someone who is much earlier in the journey watch this and have a bit of an idea possibly of what some other more veteran parents had further down the road. So I know that mom, her child was like, I want to say 4, but I think he's probably 6 now, thanks to COVID. I haven't seen him, but so some of the younger families probably will get some tips and ideas from hearing from your experiences. So I'll jump right in with the first question is, how is parenting a child with a disability different? And in what ways was it the same, or is it the same as parenting any other child? Hazar, do you want to go first?
I mean, I always feel like we're very blessed to have, you know, not just Faris be the only child, because it would be more difficult to not know. And, you know, having his siblings really have helped him. But how is it different? I mean, definitely he learns a lot slower, and we need to be a lot more patient. And we didn't know how delayed he is until his brothers came and kind of crossed over, you know, as far as skills. So then we acknowledge the fact, like, we just need to teach him how to clap a lot more times before he can clap, but then he can clap. So everything comes to him, it's just at a different timing, and appreciating that, and not really following a lot the concept of, you know, those papers they give you at the pediatrician. Just let that be and kind of move on towards just his own timing. As long as he's learning and improving, then that's great. So that's how it's different, just be more patient. And but it is also very different because it's like much more rewarding. He's much harder. He's a harder worker. Our other kids, we didn't have to teach them how to ride a bike. They rode a bike, but Faris just kept on going and kept me and Sally brought together like a bike camp to our town several years in a row before Faris rode a bike. And I always think how patient he is and how hard worker he is. I don't think any other kid or any of us would have tried as hard as he did to ride a bike, and like some of the kids too. Like if I tried a few hours and I'm done, then I'm done and let's move on. But you know, it's just the work ethics that he has, and maybe that we put him in that, like, you have to ride a bike, so he's like taking that. So it's much more rewarding. I feel like my life has been much more valuable and much more amazing having Faris as a child, as a child with special needs, than not having him. And I wish someone told me that, you know, when I had him, because there's sadness in the very beginning, but now I see my life and I'm like, my life is way much more, I don't know the word that I'm looking for, but full by having him, really. So that's how it's different. How it's the same is just kids just need love and stability and enjoy their time. We give all the opportunities to Faris. He does everything his brothers do, and we don't separate like, oh, Faris won't be able to do this, so let's not do that. Every opportunity his brothers are given, we give to him. And he sometimes, you know, they were playing tennis. He made it clear he doesn't want to play tennis, so let's not play tennis. We don't really need to, but the opportunity is given to him, not that we think he's not going to play tennis, so let's not do tennis. So that's, I feel like we as protective parents sometimes try to plan a lot. I would say me. And now I don't. I give him all the same exact opportunities. Hiking wise, he's much faster, better hiker than his siblings. Because again, to be a protective mom, you'll say, oh yeah, it's a big hike for Ferris. Let's not worry about him. Find out he is a very good hiker, and so on and so forth. So just give the same opportunities and just let him find what he's good at. I feel like that has been a learning moment for me. And Sally here is my mentor. So I can't wait for her answer, because she's even a lot more progressive than me, and I follow her lead always.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Sally, would you like to go next?
Sure. Well, I think Hazar and I are co-mentors then, because I look to her for a lot of things too. But I think to jump off on that, one thing that helped me was to find parents that were a little bit ahead in the journey than we were, so that I could ask them questions. And actually, I feel like we have friends that have kids that are a little bit ahead, and also friends that have kids that are quite a bit older, and just kind of seeing how they did things helped us. But I think one thing that's different about parenting Katie is that I have to be more intentional about what I'm doing. So like Hazar was saying, she gets the opportunities of every other kid. If she says, well, the latest one is I want to learn to drive, and I'm not going to take that dream from her, but I know that there are things that she has to do to get there. So it's like, okay, if you want to do that, then you have to look through, you have to read the driving manual, you have to study that, you have to take a class. And I guess, that's the same, I guess, as parenting a child without a disability, that you, as parents, I feel like you listen to their dreams and then you help them get there, or you show them the steps on how to get there. But what I feel is different is having to be more intentional with Katie. So for instance, she graduated high school last year. They didn't get their senior trip, like they were going to go on a grad party. So I just got a notice that they're having a grad party this summer. So then it gets me thinking, okay, do I really want her going to that alone? Maybe not. So I'm going to see if her, respite tutor person can go. And then I have to see if that's okay with the organization. And then I have to, with the school. And then after that, I'll present it to Katie as a choice. Does that make sense? Like just kind of seeing, it's all the stuff in the background. Or she took some classes, I was telling Brenda earlier, at our community college, and that's great. But then what supports does she need, or what do we need to get set up so that she's successful in that, and so that it's also a good experience for the college and for the teacher of the class. So I think that's the different part that I've seen. And then the stuff that's the same, I think, is the expectations that they're in our house. You do chores, and she did chores too. I wish I would have started that earlier with both of them. I'm trying to think what else. Just the expectation that they be kind of part of our family and contribute, not only to our family, but also to the community. And then again, supporting their dreams. So our son wanted to go to college, we supported that. Katie wants a college experience, we're working on supporting that. It just might look a little different, but the dreams might be the same, if that makes sense. She wants to get married and, date and get married and have a family and all that. So what does that look like for her? What do we need to consider for her to have that as an option if that's what she continues to want? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What else?
I would echo that she's a very hard worker, as is Ferris. I know she has to do. It takes her a lot longer and more effort to do and learn things, but she steps up and does. I think she's a harder worker than our son, certainly, and I think she's a harder worker than most people, to be honest. She plays her piano every day at 3 o'clock. We know we don't even need a grandfather clock. We know the piano goes off at 3 o'clock every day. She's right on it. and she misses a practice because we go somewhere, and she has to make it up. So she does 2 practices the next day. So if I take the kids out to do yard work, she's the one that's out there with me the longest. my son would give up.
And me too. She's out there with I am. So she's a hard
So
worker.
she's definitely a hard worker. But I would agree that the intentionality is challenging, because you have to really think through, if you're teaching her or expecting her to do something, you have to fill in the gaps. You can't just give her an instruction and expect it to happen. You have to walk her through all of the steps. And sometimes you have to actually show her all of the steps. So you have to be much more concrete and much more intentional. But that's not to say she doesn't get it. She figures this stuff out. It just takes longer and more intentional learning, which I think in the regular school system is a challenge for a lot of teachers, because they don't have the time or resources to be able to do that. So that's been a big challenge.
That's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. Just on a curiosity note on my own part, how long has she been playing the piano? That's awesome.
Since she was 10. 10, yeah.
Since she has been 10?
Yeah, so she's about 9 years now.
Good for her.
Weekly lessons. And she has made progress. I mean, she's probably in the 3rd-year book now, and after 9 years, but she's
Yeah, she makes progress.
she's making progress.
That's so awesome.
I can't help her anymore.
No, and I can't.
I don't.
Hmm.
Another cat. Yeah, we used to sit with her and practice, but now she doesn't want us to do that, and that's good, because she knows the music better. I wouldn't be able to be of any help, because she's beyond me in the reading music part.
Yeah, she reads the music, plays chords.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
But that was an interest that she had early on. I want to play piano. Okay.
And I would
try
say her
it.
grandmother fostered that.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think what else she's wanted to do that, I mean, I want to play piano. I want to swim. I want to do the bowling team.
She wanted to do track and field.
She wanted to do track and field, but I don't know why, but she did. But we never did that, and I don't remember why we didn't. But anyway, she's wanted, oh, that was one. She wanted to do a 10K. I'm like, oh my word.
Oh, wow.
Just do a 5K.
Right.
Well, the Happy Kids Run every year is probably what inspired her.
Wow.
She did do the 10K. It took a long time. We were the
3 hours.
last ones in, but she did.
I remember that day, Sally. It was amazing.
Oh.
Wow.
The dog was complaining.
Yeah. We took the dog. Anyway, so
Good for her. Wow. Wow.
So see what
I
they're
agree.
interested in and foster them.
Wow. So, Hazar, let's see. Looking back without allowing any space for guilt, so there's no room for that at all here. We're just going to look back. What are specific things that you would have done differently when you were raising your child? I know Sally said she would have started chores earlier. I agree with that in my home as well. And I would have given him more chores. But are there specific things that you've thought of that you would have done differently?
So as I said, I come from the Middle East originally, and my parents helped me with Ferris. So our way of loving is to hold hands and help and help and help and help and help. And it's just the way we know how to love. And if I were to do it earlier, I would have had Ferris by himself shower earlier. I would have had him learn how to brush his teeth earlier. I would have had him learn how to make lunch earlier. I say earlier because now he's 18 now, but it's right front of our face daily. He is learning how to make his own food. We use that again. It's like we cook and put the food and then Ferris eats. And I just never really expected, like with Ferris, be able to operate a stove. What if he's not safe? I mean, we do it with all good intentions. I mean, I think when he was very, very young, one time I had him in the shower. I remember we were in Sun River in a rental apartment place. had him in the shower. I went and grabbed something, and he had the hot water turned on to the max, and he was literally frying under that water. Like, it was super hot. And I think that traumatizing vision made me think Faris will never be able to shower on his own. I will never leave him in the shower by himself because he will do that. Just like not learning the wrong lessons. I think that's because we learn the wrong lessons. I mean, if he used a knife maybe when he was younger and maybe was not safe, oh, Faris cannot use knives. So kind of take that away from him. But, he's learning and he's growing, and we should introduce it again and again and again. Having, hurting himself in the shower as an example should not prevent you from teaching him how to shower. That's the thing I made. I prevented me from teaching him how to shower and, cooking. So now at 18, he's learning how to cook, but food, sandwiches, uses knives, he showers. When we signed him up to the public school system, I was wanting to drive him to school, but then I have another mentor, Mrs. Mustin, and she helped me have him know he walks to the top of the street by himself. He waits for the regular school bus by himself. He sits in the school bus and he goes to school, comes back all independently without being fearful. Earlier in his life, I drove him to school. I was very fearful. So anyways, if I were to go back, I would say don't be non-fearful, because that's kind of a part of our DNA as parents, but really open up, get out of that and kind of open up opportunities for your kids, because the more pampering we did earlier, the less ability he has now. And so just, chores is another part, many things, but he's progressing, and some of us don't learn certain things that are, I didn't know how to cook until I'm 25. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world not to know. But introducing it earlier it's something I would do earlier.
So letting go of a little bit of the mom fear and encouraging him to try some typical things earlier. Easier said than done for the mom fear, but probably very valuable advice. Mike, what is it that you would have done differently?
I don't know. I'm less, I guess, protective of the two of us. So
that's always like that. My husband is a lot less protective. Oh, he's okay. Go.
Yeah.
Same in my household. Yeah, same.
I'm definitely more of a learn by doing person. So I don't know.
I made a list.
Because that's what moms do. Wow.
Not all moms. Sally is the list queen.
I liked my list. Well, I think
She does make lists.
I would have been more intentional about fostering friendships. So we know a lot of people. Katie knows a lot of people know her, but a couple of true good friends, that's something that we can call a success right now. So I think I would have done more with that. I thought I did a lot, but I think I needed to do more looking back and starting younger. And I think I wrote down having the mindset of practice. So like Hazar was saying, okay, the shower water was way too hot. So instead of not letting him shower alone, I need to teach him what, or I need to teach Katie what for her to use knives successfully. She's still working on knife skills. And I realized, like, I bought some of the pre-cut fruit at Safeway and it comes in large chunks. Well, that was great. I was able to say, hey, can you take a knife and cut that into smaller pieces? Because it was kind of intentional practice that's not very risky, because it's already, the hard part's already done, the hardest part. So thinking that it's okay not to have it right away, we can practice, and I don't have to do it all. And learning, if she's making a mistake, learning about, okay, that's a gap in her teaching or her knowledge. So how do I teach that part so she can keep building on that? And then I did write down, I think Hazar touched on it and Brenda, you did too, recognizing what was my fear of letting her try something versus really what was, it wasn't her fear, it was my fear. So I remember a conversation with the teacher that Mrs. Mustin, that Hazar is mentioning, when Katie was probably in 4th grade.
Oh, wow.
It was about having her stay home alone. And I said, well, I don't know if she'll ever be able to do that. And this teacher challenged me. She's like, why? Like, why? How do you know that already? She's like, what does she need to learn to be able to do that safely? That's what you have to, that's what you think about it. Not that she can't ever. It's what does she need to know to do that? And I realized I was more afraid of what other people might think if we did that. But we did do. We built her skills for that where, okay, we're going to be outside gardening if she didn't go one time or whatever. Okay, so if you need us, you come out. And then, okay, we're going to take the dog for a walk in the neighborhood, kind of build on that where she could learn to be at home. And now she's home alone very successfully for multiple hours if she needs to be. And she loves it.
She's content surfing on the internet.
Yeah, she's not, solving world problems or anything, but she's having fun just like we all do when we appreciate having the house to ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I think, so that was me having to recognize or being challenged on what my fear was, and then seeing what skills had to be taught so that it could be done. Same with being on the swim team and then having to go into the locker room and change after swimming. What does she need to be taught to do that safely and appropriately? So yeah. I have a lot of mom guilt. I still do. And Hazar and I sometimes we have pity parties. We'll text, we're like, I'm having a pity party today. It's hard some days, so it's not all perfect, but looking back, those are some of the things I feel like I could have done differently or better, I guess. So
I think I regret not having her around kids with disabilities more. We were intentional about keeping her in the typical sphere, that she didn't get a lot of exposure to kids without typical skills. So that's, you need to have a balance.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Yes, I know of a mom who has 2, well, they're adults now, with developmental disabilities, and one of them was quite isolated with other folks with developmental disabilities, and the other one was quite mainstreamed. And what ended up happening with the one that was quite mainstreamed is there was almost a reverse prejudice about people with disabilities, which obviously we don't want that either. So it's just another thing to be aware of. To balance is a beautiful word. Yes. And Sally, just to follow up on your, every night I pray for a best friend for Bob, and I've been praying that, right, for almost, well, at least 15 years. I believe when he was little, I just have one child, so we don't have any of the kind of built-in friendships that might happen if you have other children that might have their friends over. So I kind of naively thought just being around kids might foster some friendships, and I learned a little, not too late, but a little later in the game, that I need to be very intentional about allowing more space and providing more time and making more effort to create and maintain those friendships. There's a lot, they are, I think, overall a lot more challenging for our kids, for a variety of reasons, but a lot of it is their own communication. Hazar, you were going to add?
I was going to say, Ferris, for example, really doesn't want to foster friendships. Really, he's not a fostering friendship person, right? Mm-hmm. And we tried this and we tried that. We put him, I would say me and Sally, we move into this inclusion. But even when he was in a special needs program, or like even Faris and Katie, I couldn't foster that relationship. It's just he's not interested, and that's who he is. And we always say, me and my husband, we're very outgoing. I'm more outgoing than him. My husband is more introverted, but we always say Ferris, if he was typical developing individual, he probably would be very introverted. It just doesn't have it. Sure. In my mind, I think friendships are amazing, and it's what would last you for a long time and all of that. But if he doesn't want it, he doesn't want it. I mean, we try, and he's just, anytime he's in a group, he wants to be by himself, and that's who he is. And we just have to let him be. Would I love Ferris to have a friend to go out with? Of course, but if he doesn't want it, then he doesn't. So just the guilt factor that, you know, but like Katie is more social, like, and she's joined this and joined that, but Ferris just never was interested. And it took me a while to, I guess this is why I'm sharing. It took me a while to acknowledge, to leave, he's happy, he's content. And that's what me and my husband kind of decided about 10 years ago. If he's happy and he's content and he's reaching his abilities, then that's the goal, instead of our happiness, which is, to us, happiness is that he has friends. To us, happiness is he is invited to birthday parties. To him, it's a chore and he doesn't enjoy it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, our happiness versus their happiness is interesting. Well, Hazar, how do you know what behavior is simply part of being a child, part of the age that the child is, versus the diagnosis? For example, when my boy became a preteen and started telling me to go away, I think that's kind of being a preteen. So are there other things that have come up that you've had to remind yourself that's just being a young man?
I think Faris is very, I speak only from my own personal experience. Definitely he had a lot of, hitting puberty, and that puberty kind of system, and what do you do and what's appropriate. Is he, because he's individual disability, is that appropriate, is that not appropriate? So I learned, and I joined classes that, one of them, Peace, actually hosted about individuals with special needs hitting puberty and how do you deal with it, kind of educating myself, because he's my eldest, so I wasn't sure to know what's appropriate, what's not. So I would say educating yourself and really knowing that it's mostly actually teenager related rather than disability related, because he has his disability since day one, so we know his patterns. So anything outside of that, I can tell that it's just because he's hitting a certain stage in his life. Thank God Faris is a very happy child. Like, he's easy, he doesn't throw fits, he doesn't, but when he's ill, he acts, weird, and so we pay attention to that. But I would say, how do you know the difference? Anything that is outside of his norm is definitely, but educate yourself, because hitting puberty for an individual disability was hard for me. Like, it was hard. Knowing like what to do, and honestly I almost thought there's no answer to it, but it's like knowing that other people have classes, and it was very uncomfortable for me to go hear it, but then it was so good, and I started hearing other people, other theories, other ways to deal with puberty. It really did help me. And so then I use it with my typical developing kids too, certain rules, certain things, just do it this way, not that way. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hazar, you mentioned his illness, and I think back to when he fell and broke his arm at Happy Kid, or at the Family House at school, and he didn't act like it was broken, but it was definitely broken.
Oh, really? He didn't react to that.
Faris broke his arm several times, and he's very high tolerance to pain.
Ooh.
He doesn't know what's pain. I don't know. But like, you look at him, he's quiet, but this different quiet. This one is different quiet than his being quiet. Yeah, but you remember that, it's, now when he's quiet, I think that is like, I pay attention, that something is hurting, something is bothering him. And yeah, I'm very proud of him that he actually shares with us when he's in pain. He used to not. So that's a massive actually development. Like, when he's hurting, he says, "Mom, I need to go to doctor." Okay, why? Oh, he has a pimple on his back that's bothering him, But at least the concept that something is bothering me. He used to like break an arm and continue the whole day without telling. So
Well, that's exciting to acknowledge the growth there.
big time. The growth that he can actually express himself, to say that something is bothering him, is huge.
I would have to say that the differences are probably not as great as the common ground with the kids, the typical teens. But you do have to figure out, just with Ferris, like with the pain, and Katie's the same. She has a very high pain tolerance. She doesn't really say anything. But you just have to figure out what their responses are to typical situations. And they may not be a typical response. So you have to learn when they are typical and when are they not typical. So that's definitely, and then there is growth, like with the community, like anybody. The communication piece it has to be taught. She learned that she has to tell us what's going on. So rather than just keep it to herself.
Or we learn to ask her specific questions.
Yeah.
Are you hurting? Where? So, I think for the behavior, the big thing for Katie, I think, is I know she has some sensory stuff going on. So that, I guess, is disability related. And I pay attention to that. But I know early on, I remember someone saying, if a behavior isn't, like if she was 2 or 3 or 4, she had a behavior, is that behavior going to be cute when she's 20? And if it's not, don't encourage it. And I still have that going in my mind. So, because earlier on, it was easier to shape her than it would have been, or even than it is now. So does that make sense? So that was
Perfect.
something that I taught. So if we laugh.
I love that. Like Ferris and hugging. Remember Ferris and hugging? And it was so cute. He hugs. He likes to hug. And we thought it was cute until it's not cute. And it's not appropriate, and you can't hug. So it took a long time for us to teach him to not hug. Like, we don't hug people, I don't want to hug the guy at Safeway, right? So I cannot agree more. I mean, I wish someone told me that sentence early on, Sally.
I don't know where I got that one, but it stuck with me, and yeah, so.
Agreed. Hazar, my boy, of course, is he was by nature a major hugger, and I struggled with that some because he is delayed with language, and so I know that the physical touch is a lot of his language, and that's how he expresses himself, and that's who he is, and who am I to take that away? But on the other hand, we have this society that we need to be safe in. And so COVID helped a little, right? Because nobody was allowed to even be 6 feet from each other, much less hug each other. So that's actually oddly helped a bit. But it was a tiny bit sad for me to see a piece of that go, because most people enjoyed that. But I know, in employment situations, or, on the bus, he can't just be, hugging strangers, and he's learning, certainly, but that was a hard one for me, because that was such a huge piece of who he is. And fortunately, I learned it, not at 2, though. I wish I would have even learned it when he was younger, to maybe form some of those things. And then perhaps I could have Mike talk to my husband, because I think it's hard for men to, I don't know, maybe that's an assumption, generalization, I suppose, but my husband still thinks things are cute, and they are, but the woman, you're right, the woman at Safeway might not think it's so cute.
And also hugging children, right?
Right.
So we used to say, don't hug men, don't hug strangers, and then he hugs like our neighbor's little kid, right? So all of that. But you know what we did, Brenda, and that helped us tremendously. And Faris is very similar to Bob. We had like a big circle. It's a green, and then a yellow, and then a red, a green, a light blue, like a level of blue, greenish. kind of to get to red. No, the opposite. So green is in the bottom and red on the top. And then we wrote on the green is mom, dad, brothers, you can hug. The yellow, friends, acquaintances. Then we did acquaintances. Then we said strangers. And every time we took pictures of people, we posted it. It was a Velcro. It took him like years, but he got it. Like, stranger is here. Like, yeah, it was very, it was a hard habit to break, definitely. I'm so glad to report that he doesn't do it anymore. He only hugs me and his dad. He doesn't even hug his brothers because they don't want to be hugged at 15 and they're not interested. So yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to that intentionality. You have to just be very intentional about breaking the steps down and thinking through the process a lot more than you would, because other kids intuitively skip steps, but you can't in most of these cases.
So far, that's our word, I think, for today is intentionality.
It's definitely a theme.
How do you navigate both worlds, parenting a child with the developmental disability as well as a typically developing child while keeping things fair? Was that ever a thing with the siblings? Oh, Katie gets away with it, but I don't, or anything like that? Does that, I don't live that, so I don't know.
I felt like, if anything, our son would say, Mom, you've got to stop doing that for her. She needs to do it. Like, he had very, very high expectations that she would do everything she needed to do. So like, we would at high school, she would get her new schedule. We would walk, I called it walking your schedule. So the day before, we would go and have her walk to her classes just to make sure she knew where it was and, you know, to kind of visualize it. And he'd be like, Mom, you don't have to do that every time. She just needs to go and do it. You know, so it was more that. I don't remember him ever saying, like, you treat her better or different. I don't remember that.
Well, I think he thought that we were babying her a little more than we should. And he was actually probably more hard on her than we were.
Wow.
In terms of, he didn't baby her at all.
I wish he would.
They aren't the closest siblings, to be honest. They do their own thing. It's more parallel play. And it is a good big brother in terms of making sure that it's, I mean, he likes her and he loves her, but he definitely wants her to be independent. So, he doesn't coddle her. So that's probably not a typical big brother experience.
Hazar probably has better.
I mean, my kids also, the two younger are very connected and they're together, but they have this, we made it clear that, you know, that loving on your brother, like, we love him. Like, Adam, when he was young, we'll buy him shoes and he'll say, why are we not buying Ferris shoes? Like, that little thing, that's very important. But they didn't play together. First of all, there's a difference in age. And again, Faris is not interested in many people. And we let that be because I didn't want to we tried, but it doesn't work. The fairness and not fairness, I think my experience is different because Faris is our oldest. So, but like, I say I'm not ashamed of it, but like, iPad time, Faris gets more iPad time. Why? Because Faris is not someone who's going to go out and decide to open a box and put together a toy. It's just, he's not who he is. So he likes to watch trains on the computer and on his iPad, and Adam needs to be half outside and do some this and that. So Faris does his chores. So I clarify. I say, first, he's older. And second, he's done his chores and so on and so forth. So thankfully, my kids don't play the game, it's fair or not fair. Thankfully. But how I navigated it is first of all, we address the sadness from our hearts. Like, we're not as sad about, actually, we're very happy that Faris is a part of our family. I love that having him. I feel like it really brings so much value to our lives and so like amazing. I feel like it's also gonna affect, having Faris is connecting our family, connecting our kids. You know, parents are very involved. My parents are very involved in our lives because of Faris, because if we only had the other kids don't need any help. So I don't know, I feel like it's a blessing. It took me a while, you know, when he was younger, I was sad about it. So, I mean, you can't deny that. But then just living life, having it as the most positive we can, and moving forward, and not saying this is typical, this is not typical, or this one is okay, just Faris is Faris as he is, and the other kids as they are, and you treat it like your other kids. Some people need help and some people don't. But like all kids do their own laundry. Faris has his basket, Adam has his basket, Jad has his basket. So he puts the washing, and then he puts all their baskets in the washer, and then they're like, Faris, don't do that. And I mean, they're frustrated that he washed their clothes because he loves the washing dryer. And so I like that. Like, it's okay, he needs to learn that they yelled at him that he did their laundry in theory. Yeah, but I feel like just live your life, enjoy it, because life is too short and we're not going to be always fixing stuff. I say that to myself all the time.
Perfect.
I think another thing, it's related to this a little bit, but I say it a lot to Katie, but I also said it to our son, is that, wording it like, some people get married, but some people don't. Some people go to college, but some people don't. Some people, I don't know, just, to make it okay, and to really talk that not everybody drives. Some people drive, but some people walk, some people ride the bike, some people ride the bus. So I think that maybe helped a little bit to make it okay that maybe Robbie did some things that she didn't, or she did some things that Robbie didn't. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'm just telling myself that, but that's one way I make it okay for some of the differences, I think.
It's very true.
You set the expectation that everything should be equal. They never were.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they expected that. So that probably helped.
They never were equal. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever expected that. We never told them that they should get the equal things.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I don't think that was an expectation that or a measurement that they had.
That is very true.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to those pictures I see with, what is it? It's like equal, equality, and something else, or equal, fair, and equal. I don't know, but what
Equity.
Equity. Okay, so yes. So what's fair is what everybody needs, and what everybody needs might be different.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I do remember having that conversation, I think, with Robbie, but we did a lot with him, and we did a lot with Katie. So I didn't feel like there was a big discrepancy between
What they got was different. They
Yeah.
got what they needed.
Mhm.
Yeah, different, but what they needed. Yeah. Okay. And Hazar, I felt that not with siblings, but when we would play with other people, if Bob actually connected with something and another or an iPad or something, and another child would want their time, I always felt like, oh, but you enjoyed doing the Legos and the million other things in the room. Bob seems to only enjoy this, so we're going to let him have a little more time with this. Not necessarily that he can't do these other things, but today apparently he can't, and this is what he needs today. So thank you.
Honestly, that's very fair, and I think my kids have lived with it and they're fine with that. This is who he is, and it's like, even us, any of us need different things at different. Some people need this, everyone has different needs. So I like the need, and the concept that Sally said, whatever they need, then they'll do that.
If I get cranky, I have to go for a run.
Pardon?
No, there we go.
If I get cranky, Sally says I have to go for a run, and if she gets cranky, she needs to go for a nap.
Oh,
That is very true. Everyone has a different need.
that's perfect. So what is your best piece of advice for a parent who just received a disability diagnosis for their child? Yes.
I know. First of all, find yourself a friend. Like me and Sally found each other. We have a third friend that we find yourself a friend that you can say anything that they won't judge you, and don't think you're a good or a bad mom. That's number one. Also, surround yourself with people that have children with disability, because they will know much more than you, and you know more than, share that so you can move forward. But don't surround yourself with the same exact kind of people. Like, make sure you have people whose kids are older. Don't be in the same loop with everyone with a 3-year-old newly diagnosed autistic kids, because they're all grieving and they're all sad and they all don't see any future. So all of you go out and find a mom that has a child who's 20 and a mom has a child who's 15, because it's amazing how things change. It's unbelievable. I mean, I was just sharing Faris's picture when he was younger. He was drooly, he was floppy, he couldn't, like, his belly was, he couldn't, he was very unable to do stuff. And then if you see him now, he rides horses and he works out and he lifts weights and his body is so strong. And I mean, no one could have told me now, then, that Faris could actually be an active person. Because honestly, he was like a sack of potatoes. If you put him here, he would just blop and fall. He really couldn't hold himself together. And now, I mean, he rides. He was in a horse show, and he won.
Oh.
Yes. So he was in a horse, he rides horses with support, but no one, so you have to find someone whose kids have gone through something and moved forward. And also, that's my second advice. So an advice of a mom who, it could be a friend with a child with disability, or maybe not, but preferably a child with disability. So when you say my son pooped in the pool, she doesn't look you up and say, well, that's weird. They have seen it before. And then people in the future, number one. Number two is, don't put limits on any child. It's really, really not fair. Just don't put limits on any child. And you may think you're being more realistic. It's really not. You're not being realistic. Don't put any limits, because there are a lot of people, with the same disability have ran marathons. There are people who have got married. There are people who didn't do any of that and stayed home. So don't put any limit. Just try it all and give all the opportunities and follow the lead. I love floor time, and I like that concept. Like, give the child the opportunity and let them kind of be the guiding, instead of you saying, like, I like floor time versus ABA. ABA, I need to teach you this, and that. And floor time, I follow your lead. I like the conversation of both. I'll follow your lead. Faris always liked horses, so I'll follow your lead. And then, let's ride, then I'll follow your lead. And what do you need to learn to be? So you need to know how to strap your boots. So I'm going to teach you that. So just don't put any limit, because you might be amazed. You will be amazed, because honestly, I wish we've done this when I was, 20 years ago, or, 14, 15 years ago, because I really had no vision or hope, because we thought he's going to be always unable to be coordinated. So.
That was perfect. Thank you. Sally, what do you have on your mind?
Well, I made a list.
Of course.
I think early on, I think it's okay to be sad and surprised. And then you have to, like Hazar said, move on, find some people that you can connect with, or find some organizations. Like I really like the Northwest Down Syndrome Association for us, because they provided both. They provided an opportunity to meet people who had children older and kind of on a different level, a different place on the path. And they also provided training and some good visions and things for us to think about. One thing I always, and my daughter now is getting lunch back there, but I always want to remind parents that they understand more than what they might show us. And we never know when that first understanding is developing when they're young. So I always caution parents to be, and teachers and whoever's working with them, be aware of what you're saying in front of them, and be supportive and encouraging and positive, and not deficit based, if that makes sense. So that was one of them. And then, oh, go ahead.
That's true for any kid, not just kids with disabilities.
Yeah, because I'll have parents, well, they don't know what I'm saying. Well, you don't really know that. And tone and messaging, it's just, it comes across even, anyway. So that was one thing. And then the other thing, I think, when I think about one thing that we did that I think really helped us several times was we created, because of, it was a class either through, it was either, well, I don't know, it was through one of the classes we took, but we had to do a family mission, vision, and values.
Oh.
It forced us to think for our family and everyone in it, what are the most important things? It forced us to look in the future, which sometimes is scary, but it also allowed us, it gave us like a North Star to strive for. So when we went into meetings, I mean, medical meetings or school meetings especially, and they said, well, we think we should do this, we would compare that to our mission, vision, and values and say, oh, that doesn't really fit. And so it really gave us a way to bounce our decisions off of, if that makes sense. So I pulled our file, and I mean, it's very basic, and it's, I don't know if you can see it, but I mean, it's just like, there's a picture of us, there's something about each of us, you can tell how old it is because we look down. And then it was just like,
I love that, Katie.
Little bullet points of, you know, we want to be contributing members of our community, an inclusive community. We will serve others in our community. We want to be lifelong learners. You know, we're all capable and have unique strengths. So then when the school, we really wanted the inclusion pathway. And when the school said, oh, well, we think that this class would be better, and it was segregated, we could say, well, really, I would bring this to all the IEP meetings and pass it out, you know, and they could keep it, but we could say it doesn't match this. So it took the argument out, because it's just right here. This is what's important to us, and that doesn't match what's important to our family, and Katie's part of our family. So this, I think, when I think about what we have done that I think helped the most repeatedly, it was this little piece of paper. So I mean, I remember, I think we were in the car and I'm like, honey, I have to do this for homework. Here, what's our mission, vision, and values? And we just kind of talked about it, and looking at it, I think we'd probably modify it now based on what we know now. I would encourage everyone to take 10, 15 minutes to start just jotting it down. What are your values for your family? What is your mission? What are your goals as a family and even individuals in the family? And use that as a guiding light, and know that it can be changed and altered, just like we all do for our goals in life.
I think it really helped in the school district to put everybody on the same page, so that we weren't coming at as an adversarial EIP or IEP situation, which most of them, I think if you go into an IEP, you feel like you're going into war or something, or battle. But this really helped kind of bring because it was a big education process for most of the teachers. Just because they didn't necessarily know that this was a possibility. And some people were more accepting than others, but I think for the most part, we had a good experience in the public schools.
I love that. And we had a note in the chat box, the participants love that too. And I was wondering how so both the kids contributed too, and they were involved. I mean, they wanted to contribute.
Yeah, I think we were in the car together driving some.
Oh,
and we just
couldn't get away.
I love that idea. We have not done that. I love that idea. I think now is appropriate for our family to do it, because the kids are a little more grown. And
it's never too late to reassess this. It's almost like when you're looking at your financial planning, you know, you don't just put it down once and you're done. You always reassess.
Yeah, and looking at it, I see that we haven't done some of these, and it's kind of convicting to look at it and go, oh, we really do need to move more, have more fun. We don't have a lot of fun. We do a lot of work.
We're working on that.
So it's a good, just to kind of talk about priorities, because I think we get lost in, I think it's easy for us and families to get lost in the whole medical appointment, the school called again, all that. So it helps to focus more on, okay, what is our goal? Where are we going and how do we get there together?
That's excellent. My supervisor, that reminded me of one of the things that she said that she would have done differently when you said play, is that she said that she would have rather gone to, she kind of wishes she would have gone to the park more and, played with the kids, and maybe instead of one less therapy appointment. And I think play is something that, especially right after a diagnosis, people tend to jump right into every little business thing they need to do, but play is oftentimes lost. So that's great to have that on as a value, really, or as a goal in your family, to have more fun.
What's the family going to remember more? I think Hazar and I we've talked about this. We differ a little bit. She's done a ton of therapy with Ferris, and that's awesome. He's done awesome with him. I just couldn't do it. So I didn't. I mean, we did some, but she probably thinks I didn't do enough, and I might think she did too much. I don't know. But I mean, you can do a lot of therapy at the park too, or bowling, or, kind of building in the fun.
But that goes back to our comment of what kids need.
Yeah.
And not always the same thing.
Sure.
They need more therapy and some kids may need less.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It is hard when you're going from the medical side of it. We have all of these recommendations, but you really have to individualize it. So you can't, just because someone's prescribing so many visits per month doesn't mean that's the best option for that child. So.
I mean, looking back, there is some therapy that we did was not needed. And with time, we kept the therapy that is absolutely needed, like Ferris' speech delayed. And so the school offered like a half hour every 2 weeks. That's what he qualified for. And he takes actually like 2 hours a week for the last 18 years. And if it wasn't for that, he wouldn't have been able to express himself. Again, it's the hard work. Is that letter B took him 18 hours to be able to pronounce versus, a child who's maybe even special needs, but did not have that challenge. But yeah, there is definitely, I was more into let's fix it, focus on fixing it. And now I do very selective, and I do more play. Like Ferris does his regular workouts. He does horseback riding, and we only have his speech therapy that is consistent. Yeah, definitely.
Don't you think, Hazar, don't you think that's something that comes with experience as a parent?
Yes, for sure.
No, you have
For sure. I mean, we had to hire also, it wasn't therapy per se, but like a reading tutor. Like there's a lot of tutoring that Ferris does versus therapy per se. Because one thing I tell all my friends who have their kids with special needs young is the child needs to know how to read, because reading opens up a lot of, so reading, whatever it takes to teach him how to read, a school, a teacher, a tutor, something, so he can start decoding the words. And I'm sad. There's not a lot, but there's a couple of friends of mine who have like a 9-year-old and has not learned how to read yet. The child is special needs. But Faris at 9 was not able to read, but we've already started like a year or two of tutoring of reading. So we took him to dyslexia clinic where they teach you how to read. So I feel like reading is one of the time, effort, money needs to be put towards it, because once you start to know how to read, you can pick a channel in the news, in the TV to watch. You can read the news, you can read what's happening, you can read the sign, you can read the bus sign. So reading is very important.
I would agree with you that I've got parents, I've got lots of kids in my practice there and adults with Down syndrome and disabilities. And that is one thing that they somewhat regretted in the previous generation. They're in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and their kids with Down syndrome never learned to read, and it really does isolate them. So I would say that that is something that should be a priority.
And I think giving families permission to, if you need to take 6 months off of therapy, if things are, busy,
Absolutely,
overwhelming, take some time off, regroup, come back, because they are, like all of us, we're all lifelong learners. So there's hope.
What?
I was
Go
gonna say,
ahead.
I also think with reading, I don't want to give families any guilt if their kids aren't reading, but there's also environmental reading. So you can, pick out the Home Depot sign and the Burger King, or, just some of the stop signs. You can pick out a lot of the environmental stuff that's important to know. And that's also a form of reading, or being able to navigate around the community and get what you want.
That's what I came back to say. I never want to have, because Faris was 9 and he wasn't able to read, but we were starting, because I think at some point I said he can't do it. Like writing, he can't. He just can't. We tried and he can't, and we gave up on writing because we had an alternative situation and he can type on an alphabet. But with reading, that's why I came back and opened the mic. I don't want people to feel guilty, because it's never too late to teach reading. Just know that reading, I learned that later in life, that reading is very helpful right now, because now he goes on YouTube and pick up a train going from Virginia to Boston. Apparently that's unique versus a train going to California. So his ability to read really opened up the whole new world for him that he didn't know before. But definitely no guilt, because there's a lot of things like Faris that cannot write, and it is what it is, and we moved on. One last thing I want to say about therapy. I never, ever, ever left Faris in a therapy he hated. I don't do that, because life is too short and I don't want to put him in a miserable situation. We've hired a therapist and she was pushing to teach him something, and he was not wanting, and he was push and pull all day long, and or hour long. And I love my son. I don't want him to suffer. So let's find, there are options for therapies. It's not always that, no, you have to do this, and if you don't do this, you don't get the cookie. That's sometimes it's needed once, but watch when the child is having therapy. If he's not happy or not like enjoying it, like don't do therapy that the child is not enjoying, because he's not going to learn, and he's just find another ways of therapy. There's a whole bunch of therapy ways to get a child to do something. You don't need to be suffering, because you're suffering, he's suffering, and everybody's tired.
And everybody's tired. Well, my next question on the list was, what can you tell us about the teenage years? You've touched a bit on that. Hazar, I think you mentioned that it was somewhat challenging. Do you, and you attribute that to the actual being a teenager, right? Yes.
Yes, I do. I didn't know that there are a lot of workshops and things around that, and how you allow your child to express himself and be a teenager without, being miserable. I learned a lot, and I got books, and I followed a lot of workshops that were done in Portland and Autism Center in the Northwest. I don't know. It was hard, but once I learned it, it's like, oh yeah, I got that. So just ask people and read books, and there's no shortage of resources of how to deal with especially with a boy. I think also with a girl is hard, but my learning was about, having a grown man is different.
And I would agree with the classes and the books. And I think a big thing for us was just the increase in need of hygiene. So, maybe not during COVID, but when she was going to school every day, you need to shower every day. I don't care when you shower, but you need to shower every day. And just getting used to getting that into the routine. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, we're pretty open about, like puberty and the body changes and periods and all that. I was actually out of town when Katie started her period. But I was at a conference on college options for kids with disabilities. It wasn't like I was totally off the clock, but yeah, Mike texted me, she started her period. But, fortunately, it wasn't scary to her. She knew what was happening. And, I'm like, you're a doctor. You know how to explain things. But it's your daughter. Anyway, yeah. But again, I think, she self-manages, and I think that's a fear for a lot of the parents that I've seen on like Facebook groups and stuff, like, oh my gosh, It's like, no, they can learn that just like they learn everything else. You know, they can learn when it's appropriate, if they want to have alone time and, you know, be by themselves, and they can learn how to manage the hygiene for menstruation. And yeah, we just have to break it down, and a lot of reteaching.
I think for me as a dad, one of the harder parts of moving into this next phase of teenagers is you have to reset your expectations. She's not going to do the dating and the prom and the social things that a lot of kids in high school do.
She was going
To
to
the
go to
same
prom, but
extent.
then COVID. Again,
You just have to reset your expectations. It's not the same picture. It's just a different version.
yeah,
So I think that was something that.
it was going to be coordinated prom. We had a date picked out and all, but then COVID hit.
So yeah, it's a different process. And of course, she's driving and she's not doing all that stuff, but
she also really wants to move out. Like really, 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 really wants to move out. So to me, that's a typical thing for this age.
yes.
True. And yeah, just for clarification, then did your boy move out, or is that just something that she's seen other people do?
No, he's out, and he wants to be. He's like, I don't want to be part of the 80% that come home after college. And he's like, I don't know what we've done. Either we've done an awesome job, or we're really miserable to be around, because
You've done an awesome job. You've done an
He used to come home each summer during college. This is the first summer he's not coming home, so it'll be an adjustment for us.
But yeah, she saw him move out. She's seen, you know, youth group friends move away, high school. I think it's just like, that's what you do. So that's what she's seen.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads into the next question of what does the future look like for your child? She intends on moving out and going to college.
Yeah, so when she was like 3 months old, I learned of college options for people with intellectual disabilities.
3 months old, good grief.
She was 3 months old. I remember, well, because I think that was a big part for our family of the grief. Like, oh my gosh, she won't be able, education's very important to us, and
Sure.
going to be able to participate in that way. And then I remember hearing about Bellevue Community College, and they had a program where they integrated people with intellectual disabilities. And so I drove up there and like to an open house and heard about it, because I just wanted to understand how it worked. And it was really eye-opening. It helped form our trajectory. Like, okay, this is an option. We'll talk to Katie about college, just like we talked to Rob about college. And then there's a great website, thinkcollege.net, I want to say. And it, anyway, this movement grew, and now it's like over 270 colleges across the country have options for people with intellectual disabilities to go to college. So again, since she's seen her brother do it and friends do it, she was really interested. So she applied last year to 4 places, and she's narrowed it down now to 2. We wore t-shirts. That's why we wore t-shirts. So WSU and Syracuse. So she's trying to decide.
I love that.
Yeah, we coordinated. We're silly. Anyway, but what's my point? So yeah, she wants to go to college. I expect her to go to one of these places in the fall. And she's excited about moving out. And I think I asked her, I'm like, what do you like about this idea? And it's really the moving out and being on her own and being around kids her age. Really, I mean, if it could be done anywhere, but that's what she's looking for. So,
and to be fair, we planted the seed of college pretty early in her mind. So I think if they don't even know that's an option, kids aren't going to be looking for that.
But and that's the other thing too, when thinking about, okay, we're doing the college thing. Then how about, well, should she apply for scholarships? And I'm like, yeah, why not? Let's try, She got like 5 of them last year, right? At the end of, I think she almost got more than our son did. I think she got $9,500 in scholarships. One of them, one of like Ruby's Rainbow, it's specific for people with Down syndrome to go to college. And she got like $5,000 from them. But I mean, she got a lot of our community scholarships. People were excited for her. I didn't like the Chamber of Commerce. That's a hard one to get. She got it. I was shocked, but I think they want to be a part of it. It's pretty cool, you know?
That's amazing.
So, yeah. I mean, I'm going back to the fear thing. I'm scared to death. You know, people are like, how are you going to send her away? I'm like, I'm scared. He's already knowing. He's like, oh man, this is going to be hard. But my motto, at least last year before COVID hit and everything, was do it scared. I mean, that's scary, but how do you grow? How do you find out? I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, that's her plan. Now, if you ask me, what is she going to do after college? I get really scared because I don't know. Like every other kid, who knows?
Yeah.
So that's where we are. I ask her pretty much every day, don't you just want to live at home with your mom and dad? No. So,
Hard no.
Yeah. Oh.
So would you kind of prefer her to be here or stay with you?
It would be easier, right?
Sure.
Safer. It's easier. It's very isolating. She calls me, we joke, she calls me Mother Gothel from Tangled. So the movie Tangled, there's
Yeah.
who's locked in a tower by Mother Gothel, this woman that kidnapped her. And so we joke about that I'm Mother Gothel and she can be Rapunzel, but that's a pretty isolating life, right? To always be like that. So I want to honor her dream of wanting different, and we'll try it. And I told her, I said, if you go and you don't like it, then we try a different way. It's not fair.
I think she sees herself in a roommate situation with a job and a typical life.
Beautiful. And that's very typical, like you said. I mean, no offense on you guys at all. I think most a lot of 19-year-olds want to get away from their parents. So,
But if you would have asked me that when she was 2, I don't know if I would have thought it was totally doable. It's been a process of talking to parents, going to trainings, reading online.
Calling Mrs. Mustin.
Yeah, calling the teacher, Mrs. Mustin, that both Hazar and I had. She was our kids teacher, but she taught us too. Yeah. So I don't know. Talk to me in a year and see how it's going. I might be. So.
do you have an idea, Hazar, what your future looks like for your child? Or your
I think definitely some kind of form of college. It may look different than Sally and Mike's plan and Katie's. Faris loves Portland downtown. We go there almost twice, if not more, a week. And
what did you say? Sorry?
Portland downtown.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So my vision, he's not very motivated by college. He's just not someone who talks about it. I don't think he understands what it is, but they have a program for individuals with intellectual disability. And so Faris will go next year to Richfield High to graduate. And I'm hoping we will apply for college for that particular program. And then I'm also hoping that he'll take the park and ride bus. There's a bracket ride bus here in Simon Creek. They will take you right through to downtown Portland. And I feel like he could possibly maneuver down. I mean, he knows downtown Portland more than many people I know. And then he will go to that university, is PSU in downtown on 6th Avenue. They have a program there. That's my vision. We'll see. I think he'll stay home because we have certain, he's not ready to be moved out yet with his different needs. At nighttime, he has certain needs that we need to help with. And then I always envision him living in a house near us and managing his life and maybe having roommates, and will be around us, and his brothers will be around, and we'll just, but I think the college idea, I like it because it just gives them 4 more years of some structural learning, some open, learn. And we're all like, endless learners. So there's no harm. I mean, the jobs will be or not be there forever. I mean, so the job market is open from the time you stop anything, until forever. So he will have a challenge to do the job, he will have the job searching challenge at some point. Why not do college for a bit or extended, do the 21 year, 18 to 21, then do college, then start researching for jobs. He would like to work for Starbucks, and maybe we'll see if he works for a coffee shop or we open a small coffee stand for him or something. Yeah. That's what I think future will hold.
Katie will come do dishes for you.
She likes doing dishes.
She loves dishes.
I can't think of the name of it right now. There's a community of parents that are working on housing. There's a housing community do you know about that already? Sally's nodding, in Portland. So I am petrified of Portland for myself, much less my son. So I am just amazed and delighted at the bravery of Hazar and Ferris. But if you're already aware of that, that's great. But that is amazing that he would navigate the Portland area. That's great.
Well, he's been going there via train. Pretty much he's gone there 1,000 times in his lifetime. So he just maneuvers it. It's different nowadays with what's happening in downtown Portland. But please do send me information about the housing. I don't know about that.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. My next question, while I'm writing that down, is please tell us about some of your greatest joys as well as your greatest struggles during this walk. Sally, do you want to go first? You're smiling.
Oh, I'm just trying to think. I mean, I think one of the best things, like Hazar said, it's given us a richer life, and that we know people we wouldn't have known before. I probably wouldn't know Hazar, maybe, but we met early because of the kids, and I have several friends that I would not have known. I think watching Katie work hard to achieve her goals, and having her, like in high school, she would set a goal or identify something that she wanted to try, and she would try it, and we would be amazed, but the teachers and the students were also encouraging and surprised. So like, for instance, she wanted to take chemistry, and the school was like, well, we don't really do that. And I'm like, well, why not? Let's try it. Like, what's the worst that can happen, right? And the teacher, our son had the teacher, so we knew him, and I just asked him, are you willing to try? And he's like, yeah, I've never done it, but let's try. I thought she did really well. I mean, she didn't get it all, but that's the thing. I don't think all kids get all the curriculum in every class. So we kind of set it up like that. We don't expect her to know all of it. We'd like her to hear it and be exposed to it. She learned her elements. Remember memorizing those? Mm-hmm. That was fun. But she learned them. And yeah, I'm just watching her want to try all these things and not be afraid of things is really a good lesson for me. She's not afraid of failing, so she tries a lot.
She looks forward to the father-daughter dance every year.
Like, they'll do that forever.
She'll probably come back from college to do that.
Mm-hmm. So I think the joy is seeing how she's
she's more fearless than we are.
Yeah, and surpassing almost everybody else's expectations. Not always, but that in general. And I think the hardest parts would be when I get to where I'm comparing her to other kids. If I do that, what do they say? They say comparison is the thief of joy or something. It's true. So I get in a funk. I mean, it's not perfect, and that's usually when I text Hazar. And I had a good friend whose daughter is graduating from college and going to University of Pennsylvania for a PhD in neuro whatever, and I'm like, oh. But then I'm like, well, stop it. You can't everybody can't do that. Right? So I don't know. I think that's for me the hard part, when I compare too much. And even to people with other disabilities, if I compare to Karen Gaffney, you know, it's like, whoa. But it's like when I look at her and what she can do, that's when I see the joy. Our kids don't have to do what the other person with the same diagnosis is doing.
That's so true. For me, it's been the greatest joy, honestly, truly, is like, I look at him, I'm like, oh, look at the young, beautiful man that I raised. Like, wow, that makes me so happy. And so I enjoy that a lot. And because of our career and how we also serve children in our business, it just, you know, makes me think of other kids and how we can help other kids also. I kind of want to show Ferris and say, look, this is what you can be, you know. He still cannot throw a ball, Brenda, you know, right? He still cannot shoot a hoop, but he can do a lot of other things, right? So that's the greatest joy, really, a wonderful young man, and he's happy. So when I look at him, he's always happy, which is the key, because he is, apparently we're doing something happy, you know, good for him. That's the greatest joy. Also, I really, really enjoy him learning, like a lot of, like, he now wants to play piano. He has nothing like Katie, but he wants to just hit the C over and over and over. And so whenever I play piano, he sits next to me and hits the C, and he's wanting to do that. It's just a lot of little things that he does that makes me like very, very happy and joy. So it brings like tremendous joy, and I'm not exaggerating, like really not exaggerating or hiding anything, like as far as sadness, because like truly is joyful. And when he says, like, I had an appointment with Kaiser on the phone, and I told them I need him to have a vaccine, and they said, yeah, come at this time. So I'm driving, he knows all the maps, he knows all the roads, he's telling me which exit to take. I was like, which exit? Oh yeah. He knows. That brings me so much joy, because my kids, until now, my other kids don't know many things about the highway system, and Faris knows a lot, which, you know, weird that he knows it, but it just makes me so happy. Sadness is, I mean, it's definitely, you know, that he's not going to be able to drive a car, but then I say, oh, Tesla's coming out with a self-driving car, so that's good. You know, I feel like the idea of the future, not this recent future, but like when he's 50, that makes me sad. And, you know, that when he is older, because I know now we are here, if we're not here, grandparents, uncles, aunts, stuff like that. But then what happens when he becomes the generation? That brings me like anxiety. Pretty much that's where I'm at if I think about it. But I try to like move on, because there's so much happening right now. And as you said, kind of, Brenda, in a way that it's like setting him up before the meeting, like setting him up with the, you know, different programs, different things that when he is on his own, he doesn't need to do. Everything is preset for lifetime, you know, certain programs that he can do, certain routines that are already established, certain activities that he already knows. This is kind of what I do now. So when he's on his own, he'll still go to his horseback riding lesson. He'll still do his workout. He'll still do his trip to Portland. You know what I mean? Like fill the day with some activity, or the week with some activities where he has something preset. I feel like that's what I'm rehearsing, is that when he's 50. Yeah.
I had a wise mom say years ago to me that we aren't necessarily raising a 3-year-old, we're raising a 50-year-old man. And that has helped me a lot to try to move forward, I suppose. Yeah. Do you have something to share, Mike?
I was just going to say that I think that, and I'm a pretty compassionate person anyway, but I think that Katie's allowed me to give people more grace in general, just through life, because you start seeing things, you see the world a little differently when you already have to go through some of these struggles. You start appreciating people's positive, even if, you know, they may come out, especially if I'm at work and someone comes in yelling or cranky or upset. I don't take that personally, because I know that something in their life is driving this behavior. And I look to try and understand what it is that's causing it as opposed to taking it personally. So I think Katie's allowed probably me to do that more.
Hmm.
She's made me a better person.
That's wonderful. Wow.
And she's texting us during this. She's texting us that she's looking up summer camps, just to warn you.
Oh,
She is a busy one.
Yeah. Yeah. Summer camps. Yeah.
We only have 2 written questions left, but I wanted to make sure that we hit. This one is an important one to me because for whatever reason, I thought of it. I was concerned about it right away when we received our diagnosis, or when I started working actually in this field. And then I looked around, and there wasn't a lot of, even like Hazar had said, to read the books. Well, there wasn't even a lot of books about keeping a parenting partnership strong while raising a child with extra stressors. I was actually really surprised that there was not very many. I found books about that, and I found one, and it really wasn't that meaningful. I haven't searched lately. I probably should, but do you have any pieces of wisdom about how to keep your partnership strong with this added stress? Anyone?
You mean marriage? Do you mean marriage?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, I feel like we have done a pretty good job. What do you think, Sally and Mike?
it's stressful.
Yeah, I mean, we enjoy each other's company. I mean, I feel like the concept of this having a child with special needs is a bad thing. It does make a big challenge, and then everybody's stressed out. I feel like taking this. So after we had the diagnosis and we figured out that we have a child that's delayed, of course, we've gone through sadness, and we both had to go through it at different paces, because my husband is more like Mike, super positive, not nonchalant, like, not, I don't know if it's like Mike, but yeah, they're good friends. So they are easy, like, okay, so what? And it took me longer to kind of go through it. But once we figured that out, we figured like having our relation be strong is only to make our family. I mean, like, I feel like it's like any other marriage, I guess. I mean, it's really like every other marriage. I do know that having a child disability does put a big effort, big strain on marriage. But I think because parents are trying to fix a problem and trying to deal with their grief, deal with the grief, get out of that, like take as long time as you need, sometimes 6 years. But then do that before. This is my dad. 1 second, Baba. 1 second. But deal with that, and then move on with your marriage. And we travel. We don't let we have good family. We had good friends where our kids are taken care of if we traveled. I know that that's a luxury. But Faris has traveled with us too. Again, it's just we just dealt with it like any other relationship, and grieve, deal with it, and as long as it takes, do therapy if you need, but then finish that and then start living your life, because life could be amazing while having a child with a disability. Like, it's normal. I'm gonna go on a mute, and
I think, like what Hazar said, well, we don't know any differently, really. So it's just being parents. But I think what she touched on, the grieving, was that part was hard because we grieve differently. And so that was really hard. I felt like Mike didn't think it was that big of a deal, or he just kind of said, well, it is what it is. And I'm like, what? Oh, it's a big deal. But maybe it's because I knew that a lot of the parenting really was going to fall on me, and I had the educational perspective because I was a teacher, so I knew what that could look like, and I didn't want that for my child. And fortunately, she didn't have a lot of medical complications, because I think if she did, that would have been harder on him, because she would have known the risks, and so I think that part was hard. Or I think about that sometimes. But I also think sometimes it's probably made our partnership stronger, because we've had to work together and we've had to talk about what our priorities are and kind of set those goals that we're working at together.
It definitely forces you to communicate more, to get on the same page. But I think that what I see is when people don't have the, as Hazar mentioned, the grieving process, when you have a lot of unresolved conflict in a relationship, that's where the problem lies for any typical family. But I think this is just, it's probably a little harder because you have this constant potential conflict. So I think the easier, the 2 points of conflict are the ongoing needs of the child necessarily, but then also the ongoing needs for the grief. And if you don't get those resolved and get a plan in place, I think what really helped us is this family planning process. And to be honest, I think Lisa Mustian is, I have to say that she pretty much saved us or helped us.
And going to the trainings together, I went to a lot alone also, but we would go together a lot. And so we're hearing the same information.
Yeah,
I think that helped. I think it depends on what other stressors are in the family. You know, I think sometimes we put it all on the child with special needs, but if there's other health stressors or financial stressors, or, you know, that all plays into it as well. But I was surprised. I think when we first found out about her diagnosis, I remember reading like 50%, was it 50% get divorced? I don't know. But then I was like, well, 50% of all couples get divorced, right? So is it any different? But Brenda, you're right. There's not a lot written. Maybe that's a chance for you to write a book. You could interview couples and see what works and what doesn't. But I think the other thing is I was pretty open when I was feeling overwhelmed. I'd be like, I need a break just right now, you know, and either, you know, if he wasn't available, then I remember one time his colleague said, she needs a mother's helper, like when my kids were young, you know, someone to come over, because I would call him like every day at 4, like, I'm done. But he wasn't done at work. So, you know, trying to figure out if he can't, trying to figure out other supports, so it doesn't just have to be us. If there's like Hazar has her mom and dad, I had my mom, you know, if we could, through DDA funds, if you can hire someone to kind of take some of the pressure off. So it's not just on, you know, one parent.
That's a great point, to take some of the pressure off maybe of parenting, but then also what you both mentioned right away when we began is that you find your tribe. So your spouse is not the only person hearing your stuff, right? So you have your support from other folks too. So, and I just wanted to clarify, Mike, did you say because your battle needs of the child and needs of grief? That's what you said.
Well, I think that gets in the way if you have a lot of unresolved grieving. If you're continuing through their life on the losses, that's going to impact and interfere with your ability to make progress, to move forward.
Yeah.
You're stuck. And I see that a lot in the office.
But I think there is a cycle to that grief.
Yeah.
I come back to it
Well,
at different stages, but then if you don't have a way to move through it or process it,
I guess that's what I'm saying.
then it comes out as anger or lash out or.
Yeah.
You have to process it.
That's an awesome point. I had a therapist say one time she called that the in your face kind of grief. So, and that comes with obviously specific times of, you know, like, well, like you were saying, like the prom, was she going to go to the prom, or the jobs, or the big things that might look different. So
For me, and I think for Hazar too, it's the birthdays. You know, those are a reminder.
Yeah.
And usually before our kids' birthdays, we're like, oh, we're kind of, you know, we'll text, oh, we're kind of sad because it's Katie will be 20 and Ferris will be 19. And then, you know, just seeing, it's a reminder of what happens at that age and what might not be happening for our kids.
But if you have a process in place to deal with it, then it doesn't linger and poison.
Yeah, it doesn't linger at all. I just send a text to Sally and Kristen, and then we cry about it for 5 minutes, and then we move on. Really, truly, honestly. And I feel like that's such an easy, it's okay to say I'm sad that my son is 19 and I still love him and I'm enjoying my life. I mean, it's okay to do both. It's really not either or, right? It's just not either or.
Yeah, that's perfect. We just need to hold some space for those feelings and then move on and have some cake.
Yeah,
With ice cream.
that's right.
Wow. So I'm surprised, frankly, how quickly this time went. We only have about 10 minutes, but I wanted to open and see if we had any questions, specifically questions from our viewers. So if you're comfortable and you want to pop on and say it out loud, or you can type it in the chat if you have something you wanted to ask anyone specifically. If there's not, I can fill in time, but I wanted to open that up. And what we could do is